She asked, "Can I sleep in your bed tonight?" I replied, "I only have one bed." Sandstorms tore across the plains, and nights were colder than any winter he had known on Earth. Most of the other colonists had either left or been lost to accidents in the first months. Now, the small habitat he called home felt more like a shelter against the world than a home. Cale spent his days repairing the colony's machinery, scavenging for supplies, and making sure the life support systems worked. The isolation was hard, but it had become his routine. He had grown used to the quiet, the long empty stretches of reddish sand outside the dome, and the constant hum of the habitat's machines. It was a night like any other. The twin moons hung low over the horizon, casting silver light across the rocky landscape. Cale had just finished checking the oxygen filters when he heard the softest tap on the habitat's outer door. He froze, his heart jumping. Visitors were rare on Urindor, and most of them came with trouble. Cautiously, Cale grabbed a small plasma cutter for protection and approached the door. When he looked through the reinforced viewport, he froze. A woman stood there. She was human, or close enough, but she looked exhausted, her clothes dusty from the planet's red sands. Her hair, dark and tangled, fell over her shoulders, and her eyes, he could barely look away, shimmered faintly under the moonlight. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. Her voice carried a hint of something strange, something unfamiliar yet comforting. Cale hesitated. Who are you?" he asked. His hand still hovered near the plasma cutter. "I'm Lyra," she said. "I'm alone." Cale felt a twinge of something he had not felt in a long time, compassion, perhaps, or curiosity. His hand lowered slightly. "Alone, huh?" he said, his voice rough from months of solitude. "I only have one bed." The words came out before he could stop them. They sounded absurd, even to him, in the emptiness of the night. But Lyra only smiled faintly, as if she understood more than he did. "I don't mind," she said. "I just need somewhere to rest." There was a long pause. Cale weighed his options. He didn't know who or what she really was. The colony had strict rules about visitors, but in the end he lowered the door's latch. The metallic click echoed in the silent night. Lyra stepped inside, brushing dust from her shoulders. Her presence filled the small room in a way Cale had almost forgotten humans could. She moved with quiet confidence, scanning the habitat as if she had been here before. Cale followed her carefully, keeping the plasma cutter within reach, though he didn't think he would need it. "You're lucky to have this place intact," she said, her voice calm, almost observant. "Most of the other colonies on this planet didn't survive long." Cale frowned. "How do you know about the others?" he asked. Curiosity overcame caution. "I've been traveling," Lyra said. She paused, looking out the small viewport at the red plains. "Urindor is difficult. It kills the careless. I've seen many die out there." Cale nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He had seen enough of the planet's wrath to know she spoke the truth. Sandstorms could rip through metal, and the native wildlife, though small, was cunning and deadly when provoked. Yet something about her calm demeanor suggested she was not just another frightened survivor. He led her to the small living quarters. The habitat had one main bed, a small table, and a few chairs. The bed was simple but comfortable, designed more for function than luxury. Cale noticed Lyra's eyes linger on it as he gestured toward it. "Thank you," she said quietly. She didn't sit immediately, but instead stood near the window, looking at the moons above. Cale felt an awkward tension in the air. He wasn't used to having company, let alone someone who moved with such an unusual mix of ease and wariness. He decided to keep busy, pretending to inspect the habitat's systems while his mind raced. "You're different," he said eventually, unable to stop himself. "Most people don't survive long out here alone." Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the faint light from the control panels. "I adapt," she said simply. There was no arrogance in her voice, only a quiet certainty that made Cale uneasy and intrigued at the same time. The rest of the evening passed in a tense silence. broken only by the occasional hum of machinery and the distant howl of wind outside. Kale prepared a small meal, synthesized protein and algae paste, nothing fancy, and watched as Lyra ate with quiet efficiency. He noticed she examined every tool, every piece of equipment in the habitat, with careful attention, as if learning its secrets in minutes that would have taken him months. After the meal, the atmosphere shifted. Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, looking at him expectantly. Kale felt a strange mix of nervousness and curiosity. "I guess you can sleep here," he said finally, trying to sound casual though his throat felt tight. "It's only one bed. Don't touch my things and we'll be fine." Lyra's smile was faint, almost imperceptible, but it carried a warmth that cut through the cold isolation Kale had grown used to. "That's all I need," she said. As he lay in the small space beside her, Kale found sleep elusive. His mind raced with questions. Who was she really? How had she survived alone on such a deadly planet? And more importantly, why did he feel an unfamiliar sense of relief simply because she was here? Outside, the wind screamed across the barren plains, shaking the habitat slightly. Inside, the two humans rested, a fragile barrier of trust forming between them. For Kale, the night was both terrifying and strangely comforting. He realized that, for the first time in years, he wasn't completely alone. Somewhere deep in the night, a subtle movement passed over the red sands beyond the habitat. Kale didn't notice it, but Lyra did. Her eyes flickered faintly, the shimmer of her gaze catching the light. She stayed still, silent, as if guarding something, or perhaps preparing for what might come next. The first night together ended quietly, but it was the beginning of something neither of them fully understood. On a planet that killed the careless, survival was a gift, and human connection, rare and fragile, was even rarer. Kale had no idea what the next days would bring, but he knew one thing. His life, once predictable and lonely, had just changed forever. The morning sun rose slowly over the red plains of Urindor, bathing Kale's small habitat in a soft orange light. For the first time in years, he felt the presence of another human so close, not just nearby, but in his personal space. Lyra had already been awake for hours, sitting by the viewport, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She didn't speak, yet her silence carried weight, as if she was observing the world in ways Kale could not yet understand. Kale busied himself with the habitat systems, checking filters, repairing minor leaks, and ensuring the solar panels were angled to capture the faint morning light. The presence of Lyra made him unusually conscious of his movements. He noticed how she studied his every action with sharp eyes, yet she never interfered. There was a patience about her, as if she were learning not just from the machines but from him. After a while, he spoke. "You're good at that," he said. "You can tell a machine's problem just by looking at it." Lyra turned her head slightly, eyes still reflecting the rising sun. "I've had to learn," she said quietly. "Out there, if you can't fix things, you don't survive." Kale nodded, sensing a depth in her words he couldn't yet grasp. He knew the planet's dangers well, the sandstorms that could strip a building bare, the alien wildlife that hunted in cunning packs, the nights so cold they could freeze a human solid if the heaters failed. Yet, something in Lyra's calm presence suggested she had faced these dangers more than once and had emerged stronger for it. They spent the morning together in an awkward rhythm. Kale worked on repairs, and Lyra moved silently through the habitat, examining every corner, every tool. She asked questions, not about him but about the machinery, the colony systems, the planet's strange patterns of weather. Kale found himself answering her, surprised at how easily words came. He usually didn't talk much anymore. At one point, Lyra picked up a small drone that Kale had been repairing. With careful fingers, she adjusted its circuits, tested its sensors, and made it operational within minutes. Kale could hardly believe it. "Where did you learn to do that?" he asked, genuinely impressed. "Practice," she said simply. Then she added almost casually, and necessity. Out there, mistakes cost more than time. The words settled over Kale, heavy and meaningful. There was something about Lyra that was different from any human he had met. She was strong, yes, but it was more than physical strength. It was adaptability, ingenuity, a natural understanding of survival that even the best-trained colonists rarely possessed. By midday, Kale decided to take a small break. He prepared a hot nutrient meal and gestured toward the table. "Sit," he said, and to his own surprise, she obeyed without hesitation. They ate in silence for a while, the hum of the habitat machinery the only sound between them. Finally, Kale asked, "How did you end up here alone?" Lyra paused, placing her utensils down. She looked out the viewport at the endless red plains. "The colony I was with, it didn't last," she said, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of pain. "We were attacked by something I can't fully explain. I survived, but most didn't. I've been moving ever since, avoiding dangers and trying to stay alive." Kale felt a shiver run down his spine. The planet was dangerous enough without unknown threats. "You've been lucky," he said softly. "Most people wouldn't last a week." "I wouldn't call it luck," Lyra replied. "I adapt. Humans can survive in ways aliens can't. We're unpredictable, resourceful. I learned that early." Kale looked at her, trying to read her expression. There was no boast in her tone, only a quiet certainty. Somehow he believed her. She had a presence that made danger seem tangible yet manageable, as if she had already faced it and studied it carefully. The afternoon passed in this strange, tentative companionship. Kale taught her small tricks about the habitat, how to monitor oxygen levels, how to adjust the solar panels for maximum efficiency, how to repair the communication array. She absorbed every lesson quickly, often improving on his methods. Kale felt a mix of admiration and unease. He was used to being the only human here, the one who knew how to survive. Yet Lyra wasn't just keeping up, she was enhancing what he knew. As the sun dipped low, Kale decided to take them both on a brief excursion outside. He fitted Lyra with a survival suit, making sure it was sealed tightly against the harsh environment. For the first time, he noticed how she moved, fluidly, almost as if the wind and the dust obeyed her. There was a natural grace in her motions that set her apart from the clumsy attempts of other colonists he had seen. The red plains stretched endlessly around them. Kale pointed out landmarks, old structures from the colony that had fallen into ruin. Lyra listened quietly, occasionally asking questions, occasionally making observations that made him pause. She seemed to notice patterns in the terrain he had never considered, small signs of danger, hidden resources. Suddenly, her eyes flickered with alertness. "Something's moving," she whispered. Kale froze. "Where?" She pointed toward a ridge in the distance. Small figures, barely visible, were moving across the rocks. Predators, scavengers, he couldn't tell. Lyra moved to cover, scanning the horizon with uncanny precision. "Stay calm," she said, her voice steady. "They're aware of us, but they don't know what we are yet." Kale felt a surge of admiration and fear. Lyra's calm confidence was contagious. He adjusted their position, following her instructions, and together they remained hidden as the figures passed by, never noticing them. Back in the habitat, Kale exhaled deeply. "I don't know how you do that," he said. "Most people would panic." "Most people aren't human," Lyra said quietly. Kale stared at her, confused. "I mean, humans are adaptable. We survive where others fail. That's what I meant. It's our strength." Kale nodded slowly, feeling a shift in how he viewed her. Lyra wasn't just another survivor. She was a reminder of what humans could be when faced with the impossible. She embodied resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability, the traits that had allowed humans to conquer worlds other species could not. As evening fell, Kale and Lyra returned to the habitat. They worked together to reinforce the structure, checking the doors, repairing weak points, and ensuring the life support systems were optimized. There was an unspoken rhythm between them, a growing trust that neither had yet named. When the work was done, they sat by the small table again. Kale poured 2 cups of synthesized tea and handed one to her. "You're full of surprises," he said. "I've been here years and you've already taught me more than I've learned alone." Lyra smiled faintly. "We all have something to teach," she said. "Even in the harshest places, humans find ways to learn, adapt, and survive. That's why we endure." Kale considered her words. The night was settling over the red plains, and the twin moons cast long shadows across the habitat. For the first time in a long while, he felt that their isolation wasn't as lonely. The presence of another human, capable, observant, strong, brought a strange comfort he hadn't expected. As they prepared to sleep, Kale realized that trust was forming slowly between them. He didn't know her secrets, didn't know her past fully, yet he believed she would survive, and perhaps together they could survive even longer. Lyra lay down, her movements careful and precise, as if aware of every detail of the habitat. Kale watched her for a moment, thinking about how much she had already changed his perception of human potential. She was more than a companion. She was a living example of humanity's resilience. Outside, the red sands shifted in the night wind. Somewhere beyond the dunes, unknown dangers prowled, silent and waiting. Kale felt a chill, but he also felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't facing the vast emptiness of Urindor alone. And as he drifted into sleep, he knew that the days ahead would test both of them in ways they could not yet imagine. But for now, he let himself trust, just a little, in the stranger who had entered his life so quietly, yet so profoundly. The first real bond in years had begun, and with it came the promise of survival, companionship, and the quiet revelation that humans, even alone in a hostile world, were capable of extraordinary things. The morning light filtered through the habitat's small viewport, revealing the endless expanse of Urindor's red plains. Kale rose cautiously, still thinking about the night before. He was not only surprised but also deeply unsettled by Lyra's abilities. She seemed almost attuned to the planet itself, noticing every tiny movement, every shift in the sand or wind. It was unsettling because it was true. Her instincts had already saved them once. Kale moved to the control panel, checking the external sensors as part of his routine. He expected the usual signals: sandstorm alerts, small wildlife movements, nothing unusual. But today there was something different. A distant reading appeared on the motion scanner, faint but unmistakable. Something or someone was approaching the colony. "Lyra," Kale called, his voice tense. She appeared immediately at his side, her eyes narrowing as she examined the screen. "They're large," she said simply, "moving fast, not local fauna." Kale's stomach tightened. He had read about Urindor's alien predators in the colony manuals. They were intelligent, adaptive, and highly dangerous. Most colonists never survived their encounters. "They're coming toward us?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "Yes," Lyra said, "and they've sensed life here. We need to prepare." Kale felt a surge of urgency. He had always relied on preparation and ingenuity, but this felt different. He and Lyra quickly organized their defenses. They reinforced the habitat's doors, checked the energy shields, and armed a few automated defense drones. Kale worked furiously, guided by Lyra's calm instructions, though every movement carried a sense of dread. "What are they?" he asked as he adjusted a sensor. "Hunters," Lyra replied. "Urindor has many, but these are advanced. They observe, they learn, and they adapt. They've evolved to track intelligent life. We cannot underestimate them." Kale swallowed hard. He had faced dangers before, but the thought of a predator that could learn and adapt sent a shiver down his spine. He glanced at Lyra. She did not seem afraid. Instead, she moved with calculated precision, like a predator herself, ready to meet another. The first attack came at dusk. A low hum vibrated through the ground, subtle at first, then louder as shadowy shapes emerged on the horizon. Kale could barely make them out, sleek, metallic, and terrifyingly fast. The alien hunters weren't just animals, they were clever, coordinated, and relentless. "Drones online," Kale shouted. He activated the automated defenses. Small energy pulses shot from the turrets, forcing the predators to hesitate. Lyra moved alongside him, her hand hovering over the control panel. With a slight motion, she adjusted the drone patterns, improving their accuracy. Kale blinked. Her instinctive understanding of technology seemed almost supernatural. The hunters recoiled, scanning for another approach. Kale realized they were intelligent enough to recognize patterns and adapt quickly. One misstep could mean the end of the habitat and their lives. "Kale," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm, "we have to move some of the drones manually. Automated patterns alone won't stop them. Follow my lead." Kale hesitated, but trust in her instincts overrode fear. Together, they worked as a team, dodging sand eruptions and redirecting drone fire. Kale noticed something remarkable. Lyra could sense the hunters' intentions almost before they acted, predicting their movements with uncanny accuracy. Hours passed like this. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving them in the eerie glow of the twin moons. Kale was exhausted, sweat clinging to his skin under the suit, but the alien predators hadn't yet breached the habitat. They were clever, testing every weakness, probing for gaps. "Why are they doing this?" Kale asked, his voice strained. "Because they've never faced humans like us," Lyra replied. "We're unpredictable, that terrifies them." Kale paused. Unpredictable. It was true. Humans had survived harsh environments on countless worlds. We had built civilizations from nothing, improvised solutions that machines or aliens couldn't. He realized that Lyra was right. They were alive because they could adapt, and that adaptability was a weapon. Night deepened, and the alien hunters grew more aggressive. Their movements were coordinated, almost strategic, as if they communicated silently. Kale and Lyra adjusted the defenses, using every trick they knew: energy pulses, decoy signals, and sudden power surges to confuse the intruders. They fought not with brute strength, but with intelligence and teamwork. During a brief lull, Kale looked at Lyra. Her eyes, still glowing faintly under the control panel lights, held a mix of intensity and calm. He realized she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving in the chaos, using every challenge to sharpen her skills. And somehow she had trained him to do the same. "This is insane," Kale muttered. "I've never seen anything like this." "You will," Lyra said softly, "if we survive the night." As they worked, Kale began to notice patterns in the hunter's approach. They were learning from every move he made. It was terrifying but also strangely exhilarating. Humans were not just surviving, they were forcing the predators to adapt. It was a battle of wits as much as strength, and Kale felt something awaken in him he hadn't felt for years. The thrill of facing the impossible and knowing, deep down, they might win. Suddenly, one hunter managed to breach the perimeter, leaping with terrifying speed toward the habitat. Kale fired a pulse from a manual turret, barely slowing it down. Lyra moved faster, activating an emergency barrier that slammed down just in time, trapping the predator outside. The two of them exchanged a glance, their faces lit by the flickering lights of the failing systems. "They learn fast," Kale said, breathing heavily. "And we adapt faster," Lyra replied, a small smile forming despite the danger. The night wore on, and the attacks became less predictable, more aggressive. Kale realized they were dealing not with mindless creatures, but intelligent hunters that had studied humans before. He felt both fear and awe. Humans, he and Lyra, were engaging in a battle not just of survival, but of wit against an alien intelligence. By early morning, the alien predators finally retreated, slipping back into the red plains as silently as they had come. Kale and Lyra slumped against the control panels, exhausted but alive. The habitat was battered and many systems required repair, but they had survived. Together, Kale looked at Lyra, admiration and gratitude mixing in his chest. "We did it," he said softly. "Yes," Lyra agreed. "But this is only the beginning. There will be more, always more. That's life on Erendor." Kale nodded, understanding that survival was not a single battle but a constant challenge. Yet, in the midst of this harsh world, he also realized something more profound. Human adaptability, intelligence, and the ability to work together, even in the face of unimaginable danger, were what kept them alive. The alien predators were strong, fast, and clever, but humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and courageous. As they began repairing the habitat, Kale felt a growing respect for Lyra. She wasn't just a companion. She was a force of nature in her own right, a living example of human potential. Every instinct she had, every decision she made, demonstrated that humans could survive and thrive where no other species could. When they finally paused, Kale prepared a simple meal. They ate quietly, exhausted but relieved. The night's battle had forged a stronger bond between them. Trust had grown, not just in skills or instincts but in each other. They had faced the impossible and survived, side by side. Later, as they settled into the single bed Kale had reluctantly offered on the first night, he found himself thinking about what Lyra had said. Humans are unpredictable. He realized that unpredictability wasn't just about survival. It was about resilience, creativity, and the will to endure. It was what made them strong in ways the alien hunters could never understand. Outside, the red sands of Erendor shifted under the wind, hiding threats that could return at any moment. But inside, Kale felt a strange sense of safety, tempered by the knowledge that danger was never far away. For the first time, he felt that with Lyra by his side, they might not only survive, they might conquer the impossible. And as sleep finally came, heavy and needed, Kale understood that the intrusions, the danger, and the challenges of Erendor were shaping something more than their survival. They were shaping trust, courage, and the understanding that humans together were capable of facing even the deadliest threats and living to tell the story. The following morning, the red sun rose over Erendor, painting the plains in warm, dusty light. Kale woke early, as was his habit, still feeling the tension from the previous night. The alien hunters had retreated, but the threat remained. Their intelligence and adaptability had left an uneasy mark on his mind. Something about them, about Erendor itself, felt alive and watchful, testing humans constantly. Lyra was already awake, standing near the viewport, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She didn't speak immediately, but Kale could sense she was thinking, planning, analyzing. For a moment, he watched her quietly, realizing that she had been through far more than he had imagined. There was something in her presence that spoke of experience beyond human years, yet she moved with a grace and precision that made him feel both safe and humbled. "Lyra," Kale said, breaking the silence, "I need to understand something. How do you do it? How do you survive out here and fight those things so easily?" She turned to him, her gaze intense but calm. "It's not easy," she said, "and it's not just survival. Humans are special, Kale. We adapt in ways no other species can. That's why we endure, but I'm not like other humans you've known." Kale frowned. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I am part of a new human evolution, a subspecies designed to survive the harshest worlds. I can sense danger, anticipate it, and respond in ways most humans cannot. I've trained myself to read patterns, both in nature and in technology, to predict outcomes before they happen. That is why I can survive where others fail." Kale felt a chill run down his spine. He had suspected she was extraordinary, but he had not imagined anything like this. "You mean you're not fully human?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am human," she said firmly. "But I am different. My ancestors prepared for the challenges of colonizing planets like Erendor. We evolved to handle extreme conditions, to outthink predators, to endure the impossible. That is why I can do what I do." Kale stared at her, trying to absorb the truth. His mind raced, thinking of the nights he had spent alone, the machines he had repaired, the dangers he had faced. Lyra was not just a companion. She was a living testament to humanity's potential. She embodied everything humans could become when pushed to their limits. The moment of revelation deepened his respect and trust. "That explains a lot," he said finally. "But why me? Why come here to my habitat?" Lyra's eyes softened slightly. "I've been moving from colony to colony, studying human settlements, assessing survivors. When I sensed you, I realized you had potential, resourcefulness, ingenuity, adaptability. You survived alone in conditions many would die in. I needed to see if we could survive together. Humans are stronger when they cooperate, when they share knowledge and instinct." Kale nodded slowly, feeling a mix of pride and humility. He had always believed in human potential, but seeing it personified in Lyra was both inspiring and humbling. She wasn't just another colonist. She was a symbol of what humans could achieve, a living example of resilience and ingenuity. The revelation came just in time. Their scanners picked up movement on the plains again, stronger this time, closer than before. The alien hunters had returned, more aggressive and organized. Kale's heart raced, but he no longer felt helpless. He had Lyra by his side, and now he understood her abilities and their potential together. "We have to act fast," Lyra said. "They've learned from last night. We can't rely on the same strategies. We need to outthink them, not just fight them." Kale nodded. Together, they began to plan. They analyzed the hunters' patterns from the previous night, identifying their strengths and weaknesses. Lyra suggested deploying a network of sensor decoys and automated traps, combined with manual interventions that only a human mind could orchestrate. Kale marveled at her thinking. It was precise, efficient, and creative, yet flexible enough to respond to surprises. Hours passed as they set up the defenses. Kale followed Lyra's instructions carefully, amazed at how naturally she commanded the process. They worked as a unit, blending instinct, intellect, and adaptability. The bond between them grew stronger with every decision, every shared glance, every mutual understanding of the dangers around them. As night fell, the alien hunters appeared on the horizon again, moving with frightening coordination. Kale felt the adrenaline surge, but he also felt a newfound confidence. He trusted Lyra's guidance completely, and he trusted himself to act alongside her. The battle began in silence at first. The hunters tested the perimeter, probing for weaknesses. Lyra activated the decoys, diverting some of their attention, while Kale managed the drones to intercept others. It was a dance of strategy and skill, each move carefully calculated, each countermeasure precisely executed. At one point, a hunter managed to leap over a decoy and sprint toward the habitat's main entrance. Kale fired the manual turret but missed. Lyra acted instantly, deploying a force barrier that slammed down, stopping the predator in its tracks. Kale stared in awe. Her reflexes, her anticipation, were beyond anything he had imagined. "You're incredible," he said, voice tight with admiration and relief. "I told you," she replied softly, "humans adapt, and I've adapted more than most." The battle continued for hours. Kale noticed a pattern. The hunters were learning, but so were they. Every attack refined their strategy, every movement sharpened their instincts. Lyra guided Kale through every choice, teaching him to anticipate, to improvise, to stay unpredictable. By dawn, the alien hunters were retreating, forced back by the combined ingenuity and adaptability of humans. When the dust settled, Kale and Lyra were exhausted but triumphant. The habitat had taken damage, but nothing irreparable. They had survived not just because of technology or weapons, but because of human ingenuity, cooperation, and trust. Kale realized that was the real power humans held, the ability to learn, adapt, and overcome even the most intelligent threats. As they rested, Lyra spoke quietly. Kale, you see now, don't you? Humans are underestimated. We survive where others fail because we are unpredictable, resourceful, and resilient. That's why we endure, and that's why we can face Erendor's challenges together. Kale nodded, feeling a profound sense of understanding. I see it now, he said. It's not just about surviving, it's about thinking, adapting, and trusting ourselves and each other. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the faint light of the rising sun. Exactly. And that is why we survive tonight, together. For the first time in years, Kale felt hope, not just for himself but for humanity. The alien hunters were dangerous, but they were not invincible. Humans, when working together, could face unimaginable threats and prevail. The revelation of Lyra's abilities had shown him the potential humans could achieve, not just individually but collectively, when combining intelligence, adaptability, and courage. Outside, the red sands of Erendor shifted under the wind, hiding both dangers and opportunities. But inside, Kale felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had survived alone, but with Lyra, he realized they could thrive. Humans were not just victims of harsh worlds. They were challengers, explorers, and survivors, capable of extraordinary feats. As they prepared to rest, Kale looked at Lyra, his respect and admiration deeper than ever. I'm glad you came here, he said quietly. I don't think I could have faced this alone. And you wouldn't have to, Lyra replied, her voice soft but steady. Humans endure, yes, but we are strongest together. That night, as they lay in the single bed, the bond between them solidified. The dangers of Erendor were far from over, but Kale understood something vital. With human ingenuity, adaptability, and the trust they shared, survival was not only possible, it was inevitable. And as the wind howled across the red plains, carrying unseen threats, Kale knew that the next challenges would be met with courage, creativity, and the unwavering human spirit. Lyra's revelation had changed everything, and together they were ready to face whatever Erendor had in store. The night was quiet, but Kale knew it was only the calm before another storm. After the previous days, he had learned that Erendor's dangers were never truly gone. The alien hunters might have retreated, but their intelligence and adaptability meant they could return at any moment, stronger and more determined. He glanced at Lyra, who lay beside him on the single bed, her eyes already open despite the late hour. They're coming back, she said softly, almost as if reading his mind. Her gaze was steady, calm, but Kale could sense the tension behind it. They've learned from last night. We'll have to be faster, smarter, and more unpredictable. Kale nodded. He felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. He had survived Erendor alone, but the thought of facing this threat with Lyra brought something else: determination. Together, they were not just surviving, they were becoming something stronger, sharper, more human than ever. They rose quickly and began preparing the habitat. Lyra moved with precision, checking sensors, recalibrating the drones, and adjusting the barriers. Kale followed her instructions, learning new ways to adapt, to anticipate, to exploit the weaknesses of their attackers. Every decision was deliberate, every action calculated, yet flexible. The two of them worked seamlessly, their bond deepening with every shared glance and silent understanding. Hours passed as they fortified the habitat and planned their strategy. Kale marveled at Lyra's abilities. She could sense the movements of the hunters almost before they happened, read patterns in the sand, anticipate their attacks. Yet she also taught him to trust his own instincts, to improvise and adapt when the situation changed. Humans, he realized, were not just survivors. They were strategists, innovators, and problem solvers, capable of facing threats far beyond their size or strength. As dusk fell, the alien hunters appeared once more. This time, they moved with even greater coordination, almost as if they had learned from every encounter with Kale and Lyra. Their speed and precision were terrifying, but Kale felt a steady calm settle over him. He was no longer just reacting. He was anticipating, working in tandem with Lyra, using every resource and strategy they had developed. The battle began. Energy pulses from the automated drones lit up the night, striking some of the hunters while others dodged with incredible agility. Kale and Lyra moved fluidly, redirecting drones, activating barriers and setting traps. Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly as she scanned the battlefield, predicting the hunters' moves, directing Kale with quiet confidence. One hunter leaped over a barricade, charging straight toward the habitat's main entrance. Kale fired the manual turret, but it wasn't enough. Lyra reacted instantly, generating a localized force field that halted the creature in its tracks. Kale's heart raced, but he no longer panicked. He moved to flank the hunter, using a combination of drones and energy pulses to push it back. Together, they controlled the battlefield, their synergy perfect. Hours stretched on. The hunters adapted, changing their tactics, testing new strategies. But so did Kale and Lyra. They learned, improvised, and countered with ingenuity that no alien could predict. Kale realized that this was the essence of human strength, not brute force, not speed, but adaptability. Humans could think, learn, and innovate in ways that made them unpredictable and, ultimately, unstoppable. At one critical moment, a group of hunters managed to break through one of the outer defenses. Kale acted instinctively, luring them toward a trap, while Lyra activated a pulse that sent a wave of energy across the plain. The predators were momentarily disoriented, giving them the advantage they needed. Kale couldn't help but smile despite the danger. He had learned from Lyra, and together they were unstoppable. The tide of the battle began to turn. The hunters, intelligent and adaptive as they were, could not match the unpredictability and creativity of two humans working in perfect harmony. Every move Kale and Lyra made seemed to anticipate and counter the predator's attacks. It was a test of strategy, ingenuity, and human resilience, and humans were winning. Finally, as the twin moons cast pale light across the plains, the hunters retreated. The energy of the battle faded, leaving the habitat battered but standing. Kale and Lyra stood side by side, breathing heavily but victorious. They had survived the deadliest threat Urandor had sent at them, not through strength alone, but through intellect, adaptability, and teamwork. Kale looked at Lyra, admiration and gratitude filling his chest. "We did it," he said softly, almost in disbelief. "We actually did it." "Yes," Lyra replied, a faint smile on her lips. "And it wasn't just me, it was us. That's the difference humans make. We adapt, we survive, we overcome." Kale nodded. He realized that this was more than survival. It was a lesson in humanity itself. Humans were not the strongest, fastest, or most powerful species in the universe, but they were clever, adaptable, and resourceful. They could endure where others failed, think where others acted blindly, and find solutions where others saw only problems. That was their true strength. As they began to repair the habitat, Kale and Lyra worked in silence, their movements coordinated without words. They replaced damaged systems, reinforced barriers, and ensured the energy shields were fully operational. Every task was a reminder that humans could face incredible challenges and emerge stronger, not just because of machines, but because of their own ingenuity and determination. When the work was done, Kale prepared a simple meal, and they sat together at the small table. The silence was comfortable, filled with mutual respect and understanding. For the first time, Kale felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond survival. They had faced impossible odds and prevailed, not as individuals but as humans, united by trust, intelligence, and resilience. Later, as they lay in the single bed, Kale felt a profound sense of connection. Lyra had revealed not just her abilities, but the potential within all humans to endure, adapt, and thrive in the harshest conditions. It was a lesson he would never forget. Outside, the red sands of Urandor shifted in the wind, hiding unseen threats and possibilities. But inside, Kale felt a sense of safety and hope he hadn't known in years. Humans were capable of extraordinary things, he realized, not just surviving alien worlds but mastering them through intelligence, cooperation, and courage. Lyra spoke softly, breaking the comfortable silence. Kale, you see it now, don't you? Humans endure because we think, because we adapt, because we refuse to give up. Kale nodded. I see it, he said, and with you here I know we can face anything. She smiled faintly, and for the first time Kale felt the weight of loneliness lift. The dangers of Urindor were real, but they were not insurmountable. Together, they were stronger than any predator, any storm, or any obstacle. They were living proof that humans could conquer the impossible. As the first light of dawn began to creep across the red plains, Kale and Lyra stepped outside. The habitat stood resilient, a testament to human ingenuity. The plains stretched endlessly before them, filled with both danger and opportunity. Kale felt a surge of determination. The planet was harsh, but humans were stronger together. This is just the beginning, Lyra said, her voice carrying over the wind. Urindor is dangerous, but humans are unstoppable. We'll face what comes next and we'll survive. No, we'll thrive. Kale looked at the horizon, the twin moons fading in the morning light, and smiled. Yes, he said, together. And with that, they walked back to the habitat, ready to face whatever challenges the planet, or the universe, could throw at them. For Kale, the past days had taught him more than survival. They had shown him the true power of humanity, adaptability, resilience, ingenuity, and the strength found in connection and trust. The red plains of Urindor were vast and unforgiving, but Kale knew one truth above all. Humans were unstoppable when they faced the impossible together. And for the first time in his life, he truly believed it. The new dawn was theirs, and humanity, unpredictable and unyielding, had claimed another victory.